Arrogant boss challenges a mechanic's black daughter to fix the unfixable. What she does leaves everyone speechless. In a noisy auto factory where men in suits ruled and grease-stained hands were often ignored, a young black girl stood before a broken engine no one could fix. Her name was Maya, the daughter of a poor mechanic who'd spent his life in the shadows of men who thought they were better. When the arrogant boss mocked her, daring her to fix the impossible, everyone laughed. But Maya didn't laugh. She rolled up her sleeves, stared at the machine with quiet fire, and did something no one saw coming. What she revealed changed more than just an engine. It changed their hearts. Maya grew up in the corner of a loud, greasy workshop where her father, Henry, worked endless hours repairing cars for the wealthy. He was respected for his skill but rarely acknowledged for his brilliance. The garage belonged to a corporate magnate, Mr. Walter Briggs, a man known for his arrogance, his sharp suits, and his sharper tongue. While others went home to their families, Henry often stayed late, teaching Maya the language of engines, the pulse of pistons, the rhythm of gears, the breath of machines. She absorbed everything. But to most of the men in that shop, Maya was just the black mechanic's little girl. When Henry fell ill and missed several days of work, Maya offered to step in. The men laughed. "This is no place for a kid," one said. But the shop was desperate. A luxury car belonging to Briggs himself had broken down, and even the best technicians couldn't fix it. The boss was furious. The vehicle was supposed to showcase the company's new technology, but now it sat silent, mocking them. That's when Maya stepped forward. Her eyes are calm. Her hands are steady. Briggs, smirking, crossed his arms and said, "All right, genius, fix the unfixable. Let's see what your father taught you." Everyone expected her to fail, but failure wasn't in her DNA. The men stepped back as Maya leaned over the open hood. The engine was a complex hybrid prototype, years ahead of anything Henry had ever worked on. The software was corrupted, and the mechanical sensors were misaligned. Even trained engineers had given up. But Maya didn't panic. She didn't see an impossible machine. She saw patterns, logic and rhythm, the same way her father taught her to listen to problems instead of forcing answers. Whispers filled the room. Some workers scoffed. Others felt uneasy watching a young black girl touch a machine that had defeated grown men. The boss stood with a smirk that said, "I told you so." Maya asked for a laptop with internet access. The men hesitated until she pointed out that without it, the car would never run. She quickly found the manufacturer's firmware, downloaded the reprogramming software, and began typing commands that most of the crew couldn't even follow. The garage fell silent except for the tapping of keys and the faint hum of the laptop. As the software loaded, Maya inspected the physical components. She noticed a burnt-out sensor near the fuel regulator, a minor overlooked flaw that none of the engineers had caught. She replaced it with a spare part, calibrated it manually, then synced the software to the car's onboard system. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but her hands didn't tremble. Minutes felt like hours. Then, with one deep breath, Maya turned the key. The engine coughed, rattled, then roared to life. Everyone froze. The noise was thunderous, alive, perfect. Maya didn't smile. She just stepped back and said quietly, "It wasn't the system. It was the sensor." Mr. Briggs's smirk vanished. The same men who had laughed at her now stared in disbelief. But for Maya, the victory was not about proving them wrong. It was about proving her father right. Still, the moment didn't erase the sting of what came next. Briggs, embarrassed and defensive, accused her of cheating, claiming someone must have told her the answer. He refused to believe that a young black girl could outthink his entire engineering team. That accusation hit her harder than any insult. But Maya didn't argue. She simply handed him the diagnostic log, a complete record of every step she'd taken. The data was flawless, unquestionable. For the first time, Briggs had no words. Word spread fast. Within days, the story of the mechanic's daughter who fixed the unfixable reached corporate headquarters. Briggs tried to downplay it, but executives wanted to meet the girl who had saved their $1 million prototype. They called her to the primary office, a towering building of glass and marble, a world away from the oil-stained workshop. She arrived in her father's old denim jacket, hands still bearing traces of grease, while Briggs tried to maintain his authority. During the demonstration, the executives asked her to explain what she did. Calmly, Maya broke it down step by step, identifying not just the error, but the design flaw that caused it. When she finished, silence filled the room. Then applause. Briggs stood frozen. The same man who had mocked her was now being questioned by his superiors for ignoring her. Talent. The executives offered Maya a scholarship, a whole ride to study mechanical engineering at one of the top universities in the country. Henry, still recovering at home, cried when he heard the news. But the real climax came later, when Briggs, humbled and cornered, visited the workshop. He stood before Maya and her father, struggling to meet their eyes. He muttered something that sounded almost like an apology. Almost. Maya didn't need it. She simply said, "Respect isn't given by titles, sir. It's earned by what you do." And with that, she went back to work, the same place that once laughed at her, now watching in awe. Years later, Maya became one of the youngest engineers in the company's history, leading projects that changed the automotive industry. She designed efficient engines that were smarter, cleaner, and more accessible to people who couldn't afford luxury cars. Her story inspired a new generation, not just of mechanics, but of dreamers who looked like her, who came from places where potential was often overlooked. Briggs eventually retired, his legacy fading quietly into the background. At the same time, Maya's name became a symbol of perseverance and genius born from struggle. But whenever journalists asked her what drove her to succeed, she always mentioned her father. This man taught her that brilliance can come from anywhere, even from hands stained with oil and hearts burdened by prejudice. And every time she walked into a boardroom full of men who doubted her, she remembered that day in the garage, the laughter, the challenge, the roar of the engine, because that sound wasn't just a machine coming to life. It was justice. It was the sound of history shifting gears. Sometimes the loudest revolutions don't begin in boardrooms. They start in the quiet defiance of those who refuse to be underestimated.